I've been slowly recollecting a bunch of my old N64 games purely with the intention that I was going to set up a dedicated space for some of the old Nintendo consoles that I grew up with, primarily the Nintendo 64 and soon to follow the GameCube. And so in this video, I'm going to go over what my current N64 setup looks like and what I have it running with, as well as just how the setup looks overall. So let's take a look. So to start, I've had the Nintendo 64 in pretty much every single place that I've ever lived. I've always taken it with me or set it up or usually just had it on display somewhere. And I probably this time around, I've been at this current place that I'm at for almost over a decade now. And this console sat in a box that whole time. And it's only recently when I started slowly collecting more N64 games that I decided, you know what, I want to actually pull this out, have a dedicated area for some of my old consoles that I remember playing and was really into, and N64 was kind of the primary focus there. And so my N64 unfortunately was not the best taken care of all my consoles that I've ever owned. This console had like a piece of duct tape on top of where the expansion pack goes in, and so there was like, 20 plus year old duct tape residue almost baked into the plastic, it seemed like, and that took me a nightmare of a time just cleaning it off and trying to get it to look half decent. And the actual cover for the expansion pack is long lost, so I ended up going on Amazon and ordering a new replacement for like 10 bucks. It's not the exact same color as the original Nintendo 64 plastic, but it looks close enough and it's better than literally nothing. So that's fine, and I was a little worried that when I turned this thing on it was not going to work, but putting it on, it seemed to still operate. The only deficit I had was that the AV wires, the original ones to this console that I had, were completely beat up and literally barely worked. They were flickering on and off and giving me noise issues. So I went on Amazon and I also purchased a very cheap HDMI to N64 converter, and so far I'm quite satisfied with it. I'll actually have a more detailed video breakdown on that component in particular, because as far as I'm concerned, for the $10 I spent, it works very well, better than the one that I've used on other consoles like the Wii. And as it stands, my setup isn't anything ultra special. I used to have all my alcohol stored in this particular corner. I decided to clear all that out and move that to a different spot of this area, or this home arcade, and kind of get it out of there. I was kind of always intending on doing that. I just finally decided to get around to it. And really, this is just a small, like 14-inch RCA TV that my son used to use for his Xbox. He since has something a lot bigger now, but I have that there. And then I also set up, this was a 3D printed Zelda Ocarina of Time cartridge, which is, by the way, my favorite game ever made, that I also have memorialized behind this just to kind of add to the aesthetic of this setup. And of course, just have my N64. Probably the big thing I should be replacing at this point is probably the controller. This controller that I'm using with this has pretty much, I've had it since I've owned the N64 as a young kid. And so this controller has been through wars, and I can feel that it's not in the best shape. The joystick seems like it's on its way. But other than that, I've been having a lot of fun down here and just revisiting some of these old N64 classics and some of the games that I was a huge fan of as a kid, which I'll also go over in a later video. But especially getting to revisit Ocarina of Time again, and I understand there's different ways to play it. There's 4K offerings now with Nintendo Switch 2 online, and then that expansion pack that you can use, and there's different ways to emulate it. But I myself, I like just like the arcades, I like the nostalgia of being dedicated to this device in the same way that I'm very fond of records. It just feels something's more intimate about it. So I'm really enjoying this little setup that I have. I may get a different seating arrangement because, as you can see, this is just tucked into a corner and I'm just kind of wheeled over in my computer chair that's a couple feet away from it. But as it stands, I'm having a great time with this setup, and this is something that to me was kind of always a necessary part of my gaming room and when I was originally starting on this journey of building out a home arcade. So right now I'm pretty satisfied with the way it's set up, and I do plan in the near future to get some better controllers or newer controllers for this console to just kind of flesh it out a bit more, and of course get some more games for it as well.